I hate that bit too. This meeting is being
It's
recorded.
like meeting in progress.
Hi. Should be used to it by now, shouldn't we,
We
really?
should. We should.
So, welcome
Wow.
to this look, screen, look, them. Well, I don't know where you are because my screen goes like that and like that. So there's two of you next to me. But anyway, welcome. This is a test. We're trialing this. So if you've read the newsletter and listened to episode 35 of the Full Stop podcast called Evolution, you will know that we have talked about changing the podcast and becoming the full stop. One of the things that we are trying out is doing business as usual. So the podcast will appear with guests and will carry on. But because we need to look at different ways of creating a membership, also brutally, horribly, I hate this word, but the fundraising stuff that we need to do in order to keep the podcast going, we are looking and exploring having a video 30-minute episode behind the scenes, just the three of us, 30 minutes. That's going to be the biggest challenge, I think, of all of this. How are we going to keep to 30 minutes? The timer is ticking. The idea is that we're going to have 30 minutes of us talking about what's come up in the episode that we've just recorded. And it will be available on Patreon as something we can offer to our friends who will pay or donate or something. We're yet to work that bit out. Again, we need your direction on that. So please do tell us. You can tell us anonymously. So the contact form on our website, if you go to that, is completely anonymous. You don't have to put your name or even your email address in. We've always kept it like that. So you can be as anonymous as you like. So you can tell us on that, or you can tell us on social media channels as well, what you think about that too. But this is our kind of first test episode. So we're a bit more glamorous, really, than we normally are, maybe. But we're going to talk a little bit,
I've
perhaps,
got
about
pants
what's
on,
come up.
which is good.
That's lovely. Thank you for that. Yeah, and Sarah's not wearing her pajamas, and I've managed to. I don't know. I'm just look vaguely human for this time of the morning. So we made an effort for you. We're doing all right.
I was thinking about the whole Patreon thing, and I've sort of come to not the conclusion, but I want to compare it to something like Leonardo da Vinci. Now there is a connection here. There is a connection.
Okay.
Might take me a little bit to get to it. Now, who was the ruling family of Florence? Was it the Medicis?
Yes.
I think it was.
I think, yeah.
Okay. So Leonardo da Vinci relied on the generosity of the Medici family to do all his work. They were his patrons. And so for people who are struggling to sort of, I just thought a different way of looking at things, because that's sort of my role in the house is I present a different way of looking at things. Think of it like that. Like, Leonardo da Vinci needed a patron for him to do his work. And in some respects, that's how I see Patreon, in that it allows our community to then, support us and, to do more work.
Mm.
And nicely in that is the fact that, we're going to make a CIC, that community interest company. That means that the way I look at it, when I looked at the rules, is that sort of in law, that profit needs to go back to the community that you represent. And that's, and it'll be interesting to think, what that would be. I was only saying to Vicky today, actually, that, that could look like things like, and I'm just riffing here, so please don't hold me to it. But let's say, for instance, Sarah's counselling network of childless counsellors, we could give a grant to allow people to have free counselling by someone who we know, would be worthwhile. I know that's not as simple as that, but I'm just trying to think of ways that we could make what we're trying to do look.
There's an awful lot that we can think of in that. I think that what we need, I think, is the direction and the input and some guidance from the community, because the podcast, or we keep calling it the podcast, really, actually, we're now filming this, I think, as the full stop with a podcast. But the full stop exists because of our community. We saw a gap and we thought that would be the thing that we could do. And it was quite interesting because the recording that we have just completed literally a couple of minutes ago was with Judy Graham and Sarah Roberts, who have been talking about the paper that they've put together for the Queensland government. Michael, can you just explain, because it's one thing I didn't actually ask in the episode, because we're talking so much, but how are governments, how is it structured in Australia with your government? So they're state governments, aren't they? In the way that we have Wales, a Welsh government, a Scottish government, and the English government in the UK. Is that what it is there?
Yeah, it's something similar. Let me take you back to Law 101, if I can remember rightly. Previous to Federation, which is 1901, I think, each state was actually recognised, for want of a better way of looking at it, we've recognised as its own different country in the Commonwealth. And part of Federation, so of course they developed their own laws. So each state has its developed own laws. Then when Federation came around, they said, well, we're not giving, New South Wales, Queensland and all the other, we're not giving up too much here. So of course there was a massive negotiation around the separation of power. Who has what power when we become a federation? So a lot of the states kept a lot of their autonomy in some respects. So police, education, health is all state-based. I'm just trying to think of things that aren't, but that'll do for now. But all the taxation goes to our federal government, and then they divvy that out to the different states, and states then spend it on what they need to. So that's the structure of the way it works. So it's probably more like the United States in that you've got 50 states, and they have their own laws. But I don't think ours are quite close together. They overlap very, very well. Whereas in America, you've got some, like for instance, some states are dry. You can't actually buy alcohol, that sort of thing. But one of the great things about Judy and Sarah's work is that if they get that off the ground, all the other states are going to go, oh, hang on, they got one up on us. We're going to have to sort this out. That's what
I wondered. Yeah, I wondered if that might be the way that it works, is that it becomes something that, depending on how it's landed and how it's taken on, it's an incredible springboard for something else, which we talked about in the episode, and bringing that together. What I particularly liked about Sarah and Judy is just the friendship is incredible, isn't it? It's really powerful. How one idea can bring about another person on board, and then it can grow. And that collaboration, I think, is incredibly powerful. I love that feeling that I got from the entire episode. It was very much a collaborative experience.
Yeah, very much so. They're two very nice ladies. I've spent a bit of time with Sarah and her husband, and unfortunately we didn't get to see Judy on our trip to Queensland. She was the last person to see, but of course we came down with COVID, so didn't want to infect her. But that was such a shame.
I
Happy
thought
times.
it was really interesting the way it's kind of how well written it was. You know, they said, "Oh, I liked that they were initially told, well, it can just be a letter. You know, dear sir, here's our concerns." But they actually went, "Do you know what? No, we're going to do this. We're going to think about this. We've got to look at this." It just felt like such a well thought out, cohesive argument, didn't it? You know, and it not an argument. That's probably not the right word, but you know, in terms of this is our case. This is who we are. This is what you need to start thinking about. And I think that's the bit that excited me, was like, wow, this is just so well thought out, and it can be, I guess, used across different countries and different places because it's so needed.
I think it is. I think argument's the right word because it's an academic argument, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
As much as anything, it's making the point, because almost in a way, if you do a dear letter, that's great, but in a way, don't you feel sometimes that we have to kind of add more weight to what we do? It's a bit like the conversation with digital women and about how, you know, digital mother isn't really a category if the basis for it was gender equality, which it appeared to be, that this is a gender equality thing, because, well, okay, you haven't quite grasped that gender equality and gender pay, particularly the pay gap, applies to all women, not just women who are mothers, and having to fight for that, you know, to a point, and evidence it, you know, this whole thing of statistics. I think there is a gap, I feel, in our community sometimes for those statistics, because inevitably it's a really hard conversation to talk about. You know, that Robin Hadley talks about that the data on men is unknown, which often can make a pin drop in a conversation if you're talking to people who have not experienced that. But actually sometimes sharing some figures is a real kind of like wham bam, here's the evidence for this. And I think that's what Sarah and Judy have done so brilliantly well, is that this is the evidence for these things, and they're all areas that we've talked about often on the podcast or have come up in small parts, you know, particularly around anything to do with work and with aging and grief, recognition, the writing. This paper is almost like a summary of all of the past 34 episodes and themes of the full stop. You think, oh yeah, we mentioned it briefly, but we didn't carry it through. And it's not that we didn't carry it through, we raised it as a topic, but actually what it's doing is taking something and going, okay, this is how we need to make it official and give it some strengths here. There's a chap I know, just digressing briefly, called Martin Silby, who runs the Purple Goat Agency, and it's about creating equality for disabled people, because actually it's discriminatory. It's you know, legally you can't do that, but it's quite amazing how many people overlook that. So his role is to work with agencies, and the business has just grown. I watched it go from an idea to something really, really big, and you can barely get hold of Martin now to talk to because he's just so busy, and it's amazing. I'm so glad that he is. But in some ways, I would imagine it's a bit bittersweet, because you kind of don't necessarily want to be saying to big leading advertising agencies, actually, this is, you know, you're wrong. But also probably quite rewarding that they are going, okay, we need to get it right. And I would love that to be something that could be brought about for childlessness, because it's not a physical, it's a physical and a mental blow when you are faced with pronatalism. It can absolutely knock you sideways in how you're coping.
I think it's really difficult. I mean, it's not as big as what Sarah and Judy are doing, but I was in touch with a directory that lists therapists and counsellors. And all I did was I asked the question, why you've got infertility in your drop-down, searchable drop-down, but you haven't got childlessness. And it was strange that you talk about the stats, and I sort of quoted some stats at them, because you almost have to, you know, hello, we're here. I just want to justify why we're here. And off the back of that, I'm now involved in a big project with that directory about how they raise the profile, how they set it up as a different, like a section. And initially they went, oh, well, it's got to go into infertility, isn't it? And I went, and again, you trotting out the stats going, well, actually, no, there's so many reasons why people form part of this community. And they went, oh, okay. And well, get involved with this. And do you know what? It's that refreshing kind of being seen, acknowledged. And I get that Judy and Sarah were sort of trying to caveat it, because I was like all excited. I was like, oh my God, like a little puppy, this is amazing. And they were like, well, hang on. Whoa, yeah, get all that, Sarah, but hang on. The reality is that we're a voice in amongst lots of other voices, and we may not get that sort of recognition. We may not get all our wants and needs met, but I guess the fact that they actually got the impetus and the passion to even start it, to get it as a thought, that's what blew me away. Is kind of, the friendship and the camaraderie they've got, but their actual want to get it done. I just thought that was incredible. That really stayed with me in terms
without knowing how it's going to land. You
you
do all this hard work, and it goes, and it's like, okay, and in a way, you've given so much of yourself. In the way that so many of us do in the work we do, whether it's writing something for World Childless Week, or whether it's being a guest here with us, or whatever people choose to do, it's giving something of yourself emotionally, but also the time as well, the time to do that, the research, the thought behind it, and doubtless some of the emotions that it stirs as well. We the three of us, we take a minute after each of the podcast episodes to kind of regroup a little bit sometimes, and we do get emotional in our recordings too. They impact us in quite a powerful way. Sometimes it makes you think, yeah, okay, that's brilliant. And sometimes it reminds you that there is this gap that needs to be filled. And sometimes it feels like such a very, very big gap. And I think that's what's so exciting about the paper and the research that Sarah and Judy have done, is that, it can become a framework. And hopefully, I'd like to think it becomes something that's a learning device. I mean, again, not joking at all about making it something, that other people can use to target their MPs as well, and to say, look, this is a thing that needs to happen.
Michael, how have you found being involved in it? Because we didn't really get around to sort of talking about what you've been doing for it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's just secret squirrel stuff. Excellent content for a behind the scenes video.
Okay.
So I wasn't part of the paper that Judy and I have to make that perfectly clear. That's their work. But the three of us, and along with a few others, and I don't have their permission to say their names right now, so we'll just say there's a small group of people down here in Australia that are coming together to try and create a national body, so that we can be that, as we said in the episode, that governments want to talk to an organisation. They don't want to talk to individuals. They want to talk to an organisation, because an organisation has more weight, more validity. And so we're now in the throes of deciding what that organisation looks like. There were some other people that were involved, and through our meetings that we had together, we, I don't want to say split, because that's not the right word, but I think whoever said 2 seats at the table, I can't remember, but we recognised that there needs to be 2 seats at the table. There are the childless and those who identify as child-free, for all the reasons we talked about earlier. For me, and I got quite passionate around this, because for me it was around identity. So one of the things that's reinforced in me in this podcast is how forgotten, disenfranchised that our community feel. And if we sort of make a larger group of these two groups, we're only marginalising ourselves again. and we're not creating a childless identity. So for me, I'm quite passionate about that. You know, I'm quite passionate about the fact that we need to have this identity, because it doesn't have to, it's not a negative thing. It's just what it is. And there are things that we need to function well in society, just like other groups within a society. So, yes. So we are now, sorry, I digress, but we're now looking at, okay, what does that look like? Because now we want to, we're coming to the point now where we need to actually make a decision about how we structure that, because we have clear ideas about having aging advocacy. We have, you know, Sarah and Judy's work is playing right to that need to be seen at government level. But it extends more than that. It goes to education of GPs as an example. So how do, as an organisation, we can approach GPs and say, look, we've got resources for you. Because I can tell you, our GP, my mum's GP, we've talked about what I do in this community, and they go, we've got nothing. What can you give us to help? Because I see people like you all the time. Then we talk, you know, about therapists, things like that. You know, so the work you're doing, Sarah, can dovetail straight into this organisation. You know, we collaborate, you know, on a global scale, perhaps. So yeah, so that's our dream. So we become that organisation that when people say childless, they go, that organisation.
Wow.
And we can then sponsor. The idea will be then to sponsor research, and then that, you know, then it gives us more fodder to then go to government and say, look. So as an example, has anyone done any research on what is the impact of a growing childless section of community that is going to age? What does that mean on the public purse? So these are the sort of things that we're dealing with. Yeah, there you go.
Wow. It's so big, isn't it? It's such a big piece of work that needs to be done.
It's huge. So one of the things that we're finding is that we've invited people along, and, you know, we have an attrition rate, which is quite high. So we are continually trying to mould that group at the moment. So yeah, that's a bit of a challenge at the moment. So, yeah, we're looking for new members now. So if anyone's interested who's in Australia,
yeah, get your plug in.
Contact Michael.
Yeah.
I think it's, oh, again, it's another blueprint, isn't it? As well, something else that can be kind of shared.
Absolutely.
yeah, well, that's one of the things we talk to the group about. Well, I talk to the group about, saying no one in the world is doing this. No one. They might be looking at different sections, but no one in the world is doing this. So we can, you know, just think about how groundbreaking this is that we're trying to do here, which both terrifies and motivates people. But there you go.
Of course.
The whole training thing, I think, there as well. I think in terms of kind of like sharing knowledge, then I think some of the things that can prevent people from doing things, I think, is just a worry about lack of knowledge. And if there is the ability to share the framework and the structure for some of the things we're doing, in the way, again, with the podcast, you know, we're kind of doing this video today, it's letting you into something else about us. You know, you can see us and you can watch what we do, and a bit more of that interaction that you don't see on the actual recorded episodes. But again, it's being open and sharing the structure. You know, anybody who wants to know about the podcast, and you can ask us. We're quite open about how we do that and what it involves, because it might inspire somebody else to do the same thing, but perhaps something different. Hopefully something different to us, because of this, you know, nobody wants to listen to us twice, surely. But it's that kind of sharing information. And I think that's something too, Michael, if you're creating something new, you've then learning, as we all do in life, by our mistakes and by our successes, and being, as you always are, open about those, then I think that that's also quite empowering too. And being approachable too, I think that's what's really important about the work you do. And I think also with Sarah and with Judy as well, they're so open and so approachable that becomes something that's really generous and empowering for other people too.
I think that's, I know that those two women will actually really appreciate that comment, because one of the things we've talked about is that we want this organisation to be something people want to be part of. And part of that is having a caring, a nurturing and empathetic environment where we do build people up. This is not about cutting people off at the knees. This is about building not only us, but our community up as well. So they will really, really love that comment.
I think probably for some people, it might be the first time that they've been heard.
Oh, definitely.
You know,
definitely.
When you're in those groups, I think, you know, I think back about, I'm getting emotional now. When I think about, you know, the community groups that exist on Facebook and in Gateway Women, you know, sometimes people write something and they've been living with that grief for so long and have felt so disenfranchised and so ignored, that just writing something and someone going, just liking it even, or going, yeah, I get that, you know, that's the power of some of these groups. People may not want to be perhaps emotionally giving things, but practically they can, which actually is something I can relate to. I'm a practical person. You know, I can practically do the podcast. I can practically do the website stuff, the practical stuff, the emotional stuff. I do shy away from it. I do find that tough. And I can empathize with that. So some of the people that were in your group may feel that, oh, okay, yeah, I'm good at writing. I'm good I'm good on social media. I can find stuff out. I'm good at research. They can contribute to something. And who knows where that journey might lead, but they're being listened to by you, by other people. And that is just an incredibly powerful experience.
Now, that's one of the things that we spend some time talking about is as people come aboard, they, I'm not quite sure what I can offer. I said, look, we don't know either right now, but stay with us, because I can almost guarantee you there will be a place for you. It will come through. Yeah. You know, I mean, we're looking at we'll need a constitution. If, as an example, if we become a charitable organisation, we're going to need a constitution. So we're going to need someone who can deal with law. You know, that's just one example of many things. You know, we'll need people to start thinking about how we represent ourselves. You know, electronically, on print, on, you know, it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah, there'll be somebody out there that knows it, though, isn't there? You know, that's the brilliant thing about our community. We've got so many skills.
Yeah. And we can, and like you say, share and learn from each other.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the most empowering things about the stuff I do, and it's only a small part, but I get quite a few of my clients who are also childless, who are doing their plan B, X, Y, Z, whatever they want to call it. But they've got this thing and they're creating a new business, something like that, because they've had some inspiration from somebody else, or they've retrained in something. And they're, okay, I've got 2 clients at the moment who are doing that, both of whom I've known for some time, and I'm just working on creating their websites for them and some branding. And it's amazing, because you think, okay, yeah, this is exciting. We've put in a lot more into that. And I always think, oh, they're my special clients. You know, they're all special, but they're particularly special because it's like a trust, and it's an honor to do that for somebody, because you are part of their journey too, in a very, very small way. It's all driven by them, but it's a very exciting thing to do. And it's the same with the podcast as well. Just people listening to the podcast, you know, if you're watching this and you've contributed to this and you're there, and that's a contribution. And we're just so grateful for you for being there with us as well. Just listening to us, it's good.
We're back to the loving again.
Oh, we are. I'm sorry. I'm in that kind of mood today. It's a bit weird. I'm not normally like that. I'll stop. Is it okay?
No, I thought it was a really special episode, and I'm sort of really bowled over by it. I think we've got such a special community, and once we sort of join forces and we want to do something, we'll get it done, won't we?
Unfortunately, I was going to say at some point during that episode, and I didn't, but it's like all organisations start with one person with an idea, or a group of people with an idea, and they grow. And you could apply that to organisations like Greenpeace or Friends of the Earth, but you could also probably apply it to most political parties, unfortunately. So who knows where we might end up? You know, I don't know. Sarah Lawrence to PM.
No, I'm right.
Yeah, no, I can think only I can't, not anything worse than you. I'd love to see PM. I know, I just don't actually I just don't want that responsibility. Can you imagine it? God.
I think I am obviously not. I am quite left of centre, but I'd want to be quite autocratic, because I couldn't be dealing with the harumping and blaring behind me, you know, as I'm sort of talking in the House of Commons, you know, all this sort of oh, do shut up, will you?
It's all theatre, isn't it? I think it's like theatre, and you don't quite know what they're doing behind you, as we've often seen, and the way that it's all set up, the architecture of everything is all set up to make it so that you are yelling at each other.
It's just our parliament, though, isn't it? Because I watched the Australian parliament, I watched the Scottish one.
Ours gets a bit lively.
But the design of the building, if you think about the design of we're digressing. Should we stop now? Because we're going to go into architectural design. And if it mentions the word design, I've gone down the rabbit hole.
I'll bring us back. When you were talking about groups of people, one of the things that our group is really grasping hold of is a quote by Margaret Mead.
Ooh.
Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Wow. And that's a thing that we're grasping hold of.
Yeah, it is. Do you know what? I was going to read you the quote that I did for the Buddhist thing, and we're going to leave with that. That's going to be the quote then. I'll save up my one. It's a bit longer. I was looking at it thinking that's quite a long quote. But anyway, yeah.
No, it's a good quote.
It's nice, isn't it? It's empowering. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. And universal, I think, as well, because I think some quotes can sometimes be a bit difficult to analyse. It's nice to have a mission statement, isn't it?
What is, and because one of the things we recognise is that no one's going to do this if we don't.
No, nobody will do it for us, will they? We've got to do it ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got one more thing.
Okay.
Since we can do secret squirrel stuff in this recording.
We can, can't we?
Yeah.
So,
good. Dear listener, more secret squirrel stuff.
I got a phone call. Excuse me. I got a phone call from a producer of SBS Insight.
Oh,
yes. SBS, but people who are not in Australia, is the special broadcasting service. It was originally set up back in don't know when, before my time in Australia anyway, but because we're so multicultural, we needed a multicultural national broadcaster. And so it's now got a bit of a edgy vibe to it. So it's ABC, which is like your BBC, probably very much the same, but SBS, which is also sort of a ABC. Yeah, it's a bit more edgy. Anyway, so they have a flagship talk show called Insight, which really deals with some of the gritty and meaty subjects that need to be talked about in our society. And producer said, "Look, would you mind coming on?" Because after the conversation, she's going, "Oh, you really know your stuff. I've looked at your podcast and your website, and I'm looking around the room going, is she talking to me? Is she really talking to me?" But now, if it goes ahead, it will probably be in March. So I'll keep you posted on that. But it looks like there probably be a IVF slant on it as well. So when I talk to Vicky, she says, behave yourself and don't piss anyone off. Because I think we all know my attitude towards the IVF industry. And so, but it's particularly around childless men. So, which is great. So they done one recently on childless women, and there was an Aussie woman who's sort of in our circle that was part of that. And so, yeah, this one's about childless men. So I'm looking forward to it because apparently I know what I'm talking about.
Bloody brilliant.
That's fantastic, Michael.
Yeah.
Well done. It's brilliant.
So chuffed for you.
Yeah.
And it all came around from the ABC article.
So do we need to get your autograph now then, or what do we do with this?
Remember us, won't you?
Yeah,
You know.
you're going to become a lovey.
You will.
Darlings.
There'll be a darlings, yes, I'm here. Yes. Yeah. He'll lose those Essex roots. They'll tell you, they'll go. They'll be like, yeah, no.
Into the episode. Go, darlings, I'm here.
Darlings, I'm here. Yes, I've arrived.
You may press record. No, it's a.
I don't think I'll be sitting there, darlings. Move me.
So amazed for you, though. It's amazing.
Oh, it's look, if it goes ahead, it'll be a great thing for us.
Hell yeah.
Both for the podcast and both for the community as well. Because don't worry, I'll be plugging everything. I just hope I don't piss anyone off if I get a bit too worked out.
But then sometimes you have to. I think you have to kind of have those difficult conversations. I was talking to somebody the other day and about actually a little bit about what we talked about briefly with Judy, and about how committing to something and how flexible working and job sharing and working part-time and all those things aren't necessarily things that have to be for parents. They can be for other people too. And I've been asked just to talk a bit about my career journey, why I do what I do now. And it's going to be a bit contentious. It's going to annoy a few people, but sometimes that's how you get the conversation started. You need to have a little bit of that contentiousness in there in order to bring about the responses. And you see it quite often, I think, in oh gosh, what's that program called? Programs that we are over here in the UK, there's Loose Women and other things like that I avoid like the plague, but they do have stuff that comes up on that, and it can be contentious. But what you find is that it does create advocacy. And actually a lot of the stuff around what we do with the podcast and talking about some of the things we do and the difficult things, particularly I think the sex and intimacy episode as well. There's this weird thing that I do. I've just noticed that I do it when I say anything with an X or something, and then I go sex. No, that side. I can't do the left and right anyway. The video, excellent, lovely. I love it. Not really. But with the sex and the intimacy episode, we had an awful lot going on, I think, with the conversations about, people hadn't thought about that. But outside of our community too, an awful lot of those themes. And again, with aging as well, people weren't necessarily aware of that. A friend of mine who's child-free creates end-of-life care. She's an end-of-life, I guess, a planner rather than a doula. She doesn't call herself a doula, but end-of-life care. And one of the books that she's produced, I've got here, and it's a workbook that you can fill in. And we're talking about that because as child-free, she's very much aware that there's a responsibility for her to provide that information and to have that care. And there's an awful lot of shared information in that, and having a conversation. It was a very powerful conversation to have with her. But it was one that she'd also listened to the podcast and said the stuff that's in the podcast and in your community that's a little bit different too.
Yeah. I guess what we're saying, Michael, is fuck it, just be yourself. If you get passionate, you get passionate. Yeah,
it's a way of sharing information at the end of the day.
I will.
And it's you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's it.
Yeah. And to be honest, I don't think I could ever imagine you being, in all the time that I've known you, which is quite some time now, actually, I suppose, is that I've never kind of known you to be angry as in that angry, but you're what's the word I'm trying to look for? You're usefully, productively angry, in a sense that I'm often unproductively angry, I feel. But I think you're very productively angry, and I think that's an approachably so. You believe in what you do very, very passionately, and I think that's a really important thing that people will be encouraged by.
Yeah.
We're back to loving again. Sorry, I went there again.
when I think about this, you know, if it happens and if I get on TV, I saw a quote this morning that sort of resonated with me, and it says, "I don't need a mood ring. I've got a face," and that's going to be me. That's going to be me because between Vicky and I, like there's. She doesn't need anything except to look at my face to know what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, and if I'm pissed off, I'm pissed off, and you see it. So yeah.
You could have told us that before we started to agree the video thing, you know. Just saying.
That's got to go on a t-shirt, isn't it, or something?
It has.
Yeah.
It's got to go on a t-shirt. Yeah, I like that. I was thinking about the mugs again, just digressing. We will be doing useful content. It would be useful and not digressing too much. But the idea is that, you know, there'll be useful things. But I was thinking about the mugs and how we just sort of need little mugs on our desks to drink from in the video.
Oh no! Look, don't get me started on the mugs. But now you have.
Yeah, go on then. I say it, you go with it.
Can you not think of a greater conversational starter than you're at your workplace, if we ever get back to our workplaces, and there you are with your full stop mug with our logo on it, and someone says, "What's that?" And you can talk all about the mug and the podcast. It doesn't have to be about the person holding the mug, and all of a sudden you've educated someone. Just want to put that out there because you know me and the mug, so I'm pushing hard.
You're really passionate.
You are, aren't you?
If anyone wants to back me up here, please.
Do.
No, I think it'd be good.
I think it's a good idea. Yeah. One of the conversation starters I always get is the thing behind me here: design will save the world, and no one can see the rest because my hair is so big. But yeah, it's words, it's conversation, it's visual. Your visual intention can create a conversation after that. As you say, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that is about the person. It can just be something neutral. So I feel like I'm swinging towards the kind of like vote yes for mugs. Yeah. And I wasn't. I was entirely neutral, actually abstaining on such, because I was thinking about, oh my God, how are we going to ship them out to people? However, that's a minor practical point, and I'm sure that we will get over that at some point.
One bite at a time.
Yeah.
One bite at a time.
Yeah, we just get to a point where we've got the CIC completely formally sorted out. Then we'll look at mugs. It can be your entire project, Michael.
Exactly. Yeah. And there, ladies and gentlemen, we have a conversation with the full stop. We go around the houses and we cover lots of stuff.
We do. We didn't digress too far, though, to be fair.
No, we didn't.
We kept it clean, and none of us have actually sworn at all on this episode. Did you? Oh, you did. Okay, I did not.
A fuck it. Oh, 2 fuck it's.
Okay, 3. Oh, we're just so childish, aren't we? Really, at the end of the day, just, honestly, grow up, Sarah. Really, honestly.
Right.
Okay, fabulous,
brilliant. So yeah, there's our conversation.
It
Want
is.
more? Let us know.
Yeah, do. And honestly, absolutely. Just before we sign off, it is your podcast. It's not ours. We just turn up and we're kind of the gobby ones that talk about all these things, but everything we do is driven by you. So it's really important that, you know, for us and for the future of the podcast, that if you've got an opinion, then please do say so. As I say, it can be completely anonymous, or you can track us down on social media. It has been a bit quiet on social media. That's because I've been stuck with my head in other things, work related, but I'm back and around a bit more at the moment. So yeah. And Instagram, I'm really sorry. I'm so crap at Instagram. I need to engage with Instagram. I tend to leave that to Michael.
Yeah, just let us know. We're all ears.
Yeah.
And thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.